let's do a deep dive on the houses in astrology. So I'm thinking that we'll run through them one house at a time, but use this intro as a way to set up the house system in general, talk about the significance of the houses, and explain the basis of it so that we can jump off and get into the specific themes that are addressed in each house. So for starters, the houses in astrology are the areas of your life. They are conceptual and literal spaces in your life that make it whole, right? That give you like a holistic sense of not just you in an isolated way, not just you out of context, but you in the context of your life. Now, there are actually a couple of ways to break down and structure the houses, and depending on the house system that you use and the type of astrology that you practice, you might do this in a different way. So whole sign houses, which is the practice that I use, breaks down each house per sign, right? So one whole sign equals one whole house, and your ascendant is your first house, and they move through that way consecutively. A lot of other house systems that you might be familiar with are called quadrant house systems. And so they use these angles, the ascendant and the descendant, and the midheaven and the IC, as a way to break the houses into 4 different chunks. So here we can see a whole sign house system set up, and you see the ascendant, which creates an axis with the descendant, which is exactly opposite that. So this is at 12 degrees of Aries, making the descendant at 12 degrees of Libra. And then you can also see the midheaven up there at 7 degrees of Capricorn. It creates an axis with the IC that will be at 7 degrees of Cancer. These angular axes fall within houses, right? Because the house system is set up based on the whole sign that the ascendant is in. This is different, for example, from, say, a Placidus house system, which is one of the quadrant house systems. So here you can see that the ascendant, 12 degrees of Aries, begins the first house. It is the cusp of the first house. And the descendant, 12 degrees of Libra, will be the cusp of the 7th house. The midheaven is the cusp of the 10th house. The IC is the cusp of the 4th house. So that's one of the major differences in how the systems are set up, depending on what kind of house system you're using. So in order to really understand the houses, you kind of have to pick one and move forward. There are others aside from these two. These are just the most popular ones, so I figured I'd explain these. So this is the house system I use, so this is what I'm going to speak to. Here we can see that we have all 12 houses represented. Everyone has all 12 houses in their chart, and therefore they will have the themes, the areas of life, and all of the things that come along with the houses, right? So no one is lacking in a sign, no one is lacking in a house, right? Whether or not you have placements there is a different question. So structurally, the way that these houses are set up is we have angular houses, 1, 7, 4, and 10, 1, 4, 7, and 10, and they are initiatory houses, but they're also speaking to really fundamental and foundational areas of life, right? Then you have what's called succedent houses, 2, 5, 8, and 11 that come along following those angular houses. They carry that area of life forward. They bring you out just a little bit more, and they involve a more steady pace to get through them in some ways. They can be areas of life that you have to put more energy into to see things happen rather than structural things that just are. And then we have cadent houses, 3, 6, 9, and 12. In some traditional texts, these are considered some more like challenging houses from time to time, but they speak to like a change. They speak to growth and fluctuation. They move you into the next season brought on by the next angular house, basically. There are parallels between this and the modalities of the signs. Then we can also look at these houses in a different way. They are also grouped into what I would call the expressive houses, 1, 5, and 9, which are about how you use yourself in the world, how you make yourself in the world, how you show yourself, and how you are, right? And then there are the material houses, 2, 6, and 10, which speak a lot more to what kind of items you surround yourself with, how you take care of yourself in a fundamental material, like it can be monetary, but it can also be structural in some ways. But yeah, and then you have the social houses, 3, 7, and 11, which are speaking much more to relationships and how you integrate other people into your sense of self. And then the internal houses 4, 8, and 12 that are speaking to inner foundations, parts of you that may be harder for other people to see or harder for you to see, but are very functionally foundational for who you are and like your emotional reality. So we're gonna do a real deep dive and get into the qualities of each house. But the left side of the chart, hanging out on either side of the ascendant, you have the 12th house, the 1st house, and the 2nd house, are speaking most foundationally to like who you are as a person, right? The 3rd house, 4th house, and 5th house are speaking a lot to like the foundations that make you, the ground beneath you, where you come from, and the hidden parts of you, what you need to feel safe and secure. 6, 7, and 8 are speaking a lot more to like how you interact with other people, especially in one-on-one dynamics, how you make partnerships, but also just like how you interact in a one-on-one way with other people. 9, 10, and 11 are speaking very much to how you are externally. What are your big picture goals? What are you trying to do out in the world? And what does that look like to you? So based on where you have placements or a concentration of energy, we can look at a chart and get an idea of what's significant in your life, where your challenges are, where your gifts are. If they're hanging out in that left quadrant by the ascendant, then we're looking at someone who's doing a lot of internal work on who they are and really understanding their self in this world. They're kind of out of context self in some ways. Their personal self in all of the dimensions that can be. If someone has a lot of planets hanging out at the bottom of the chart, we know they're thinking a lot about security and foundations for themselves. They have a lot of planets hanging out by the descendant in the right part of the chart. We have someone who's very concerned with one-on-one relationships and understanding themselves in interpersonal dynamics. And somebody with a concentration of planets and energy at the top of the chart is really concerned with what their external life is going to look like and what they're adding to the world. That's my overview of the houses. I think I covered everything. If you have any questions though, please feel free to ask and we'll dive into them. Next, I'll just add a little comment for the 1st house and we'll start there.